Well, hi everyone again.
Hello.
Fiona's in this video. She's actually been nagging me since I did the last one and felt like she needed to be involved. And in fact,
Sure.
she's broken my will. I had to give in.
Just forget all of that. You can start again. Come on. Hi, everyone.
Hi everyone. We want to focus on this calling out. Those of you who have not watched this video, it'd be good to go and watch the other one, and then you can watch the recorded version of this later, or you can watch it whatever. The calling out is calling out to the dream of life that we hold, which we talk about in the video. Now, if we're not conscious of what we're calling out, then the living dream of our soul that comes naturally when we are raised up by nature with no one inside it's defining reality to us, calls out to the birds, to the trees, to the creatures, to the soil, to the stuff, to everything, to sing that song that we're singing with us in communion as the elation and joy of creation that we are, as the essence of God gifted to all of us as man. When we allow this black to drip into the pure white of the dream that we hold, this black are the intentions of the occultists to imprint us with definitions that instruct us to perform the way they want us to be for them. Hence, power and control over another man. Hence the E-go and the E-motion and all the things of the English language that are the black that's dripping into the pure white, dispersing as grey, and we're not being conscious of the fact that we've never been given full disclosure that this language we call out is not natural to us. And it was defined by occultists, by other men and women, telling us how to think and feel, what's right and wrong, who we really are, what we're really part of, where we came from, where we're heading. And we're so bamboozled by this ongoing distraction because it's coming at us constantly, calling out through the billboards as you're driving the car. You're calling out to the car. You're calling out to electricity. We're calling out to the internet. We're calling out to social media. We're calling out to technologies and computers. We're calling out to plastic and steel and all the other things that forms the material, physical forms of the system, all the constructs and concepts materialized by our doing, by our free will. We're calling out to death and destruction when we call out English, when we call out alphabets. This calling out is at the root of the occults, is at the root of what all the great men and women of the past have taken on and challenged to get rid of, because some of the things that I have felt was that when we see all the images of like witches put on stakes and burnt at the fires, and we hear about all the atrocities that have been transcribed by mostly occultists back then, because they're the only ones who could read and write, to provide us with a history which was always biased to suit the version of the agenda that they were upholding. You will find that it was never about Jews. It's never been a history of a war with Jews. It's always been a war with the occultists who act as Jews because they hide behind Jew. But they also, these occultists hide behind Greek, hide behind Italian, hide behind titles, as in lawyer, barrister, judge, hide behind teacher, hide behind men and women. They hide behind brothers and sisters, uncles and aunties, mothers and fathers. And all what they hide behind are kept secret because they're under oath not to reveal the truth of what they've sold out to. Because they themselves are under the beck and call of the higher levels of this occultic world. And if you look at the old history of Europe, it's explained that, like, the Roman Empire could never defeat the Germans, the regions we now call Germany, or into Scandinavia. They couldn't. How could I explain? They couldn't
bring them under, get through to their
brains.
Yeah,
they couldn't get underneath them.
Bring them under.
And what was actually the opposite was happening. A lot of these white races. Why are you pointing your finger there?
Because you're not looking at the camera.
Yeah, that's okay. It doesn't matter. It's just bear with me because I get into this. You just have to ignore me when I'm talking. And you're used to not doing this live, so this is us having our
marital moments.
Our marital moments. When you're looking at the history of the Jews and the persecution of the Jews of the old times, you're looking at the persecution of the occultists, not the Jews, because the Jews are a new phenomena. It's only the letter J didn't even exist till 1520 when Francis Bacon, under the alias William Shakespeare, started using the letter J, and it was coming out of the Judeo-Judaic world. So the Jew and the Jew phenomena is all a recent mishmash of bullshit, brainwashing that inculcated tribes that came from various places across Earth, particularly in the old Soviet Union bloc. But anyway, what I'm getting at is that the witches that are being burnt were done by our ancestors because they saw the danger of this black magic that was being done to their children. And they knew if they allowed that to spread, we would end up in all this mess we're in today, where there is no community immunity, no resistance against this kind of occultic attack. So it's always been a history of brother against brother, and of brothers and sisters rising up to stop the occultists who have lost themselves, who are brothers and sisters, lost themselves to these occultic practices. And so that war has always been the wars in the heavens. It's really the wars of our consciousness between the light and the dark. Really a battle between a man wanting to dominate another man. The belief that they have inherent rights to act as you know, kings and queens and pharaohs and emperors, or to act as the shepherds that lead their flock, who they thought were lost. Again, the Adam, Eve, apple, and snake, the definitions that were defining man, when the snake, you know, I got to repeat this because it all ties into this. The snake is man, providing suggestions, but the snake is coiled around the forbidden tree, which is explanation, instruction, education, suggestion, indoctrination, brainwashing. And the snake, the man, is putting a seed of definition into Eve, a man, and enchanting her, seducing her, getting her to like the song of the calling out of the definition that the snake had enchanted Eve with. And Eve fell, the womb man fell for this lie. And then Eve was directed by the snake through intention, through subliminal means, and because of her good heart, wanting to share the ecstaticness of a definition, being defining what she's experiencing. You know, the daffodil is yellow. Turning around to Adam and saying, look, this is a daffodil and this is yellow. To get Adam to be seduced into the definitions, which would force Adam to fall into the shadow world of illumination, which is the world of the occultist power and control over all of man, because Lucifer is the intellect. It's the realm of thought control. It's the realm of definitions, of explanations, instructions, education, suggestion, defining a perception of reality that's all based in fantasy. Because all of it is fantasy, because that's all they can offer, the occultists, a fantasy. So when a man is lost to fantasy, man is lost to reality. Sorry, when man is lost in fantasy, man is lost to reality. And a man lost to reality is capable of destroying reality because it has no sense of belonging anymore to it. So from there, in the early stages, unfolded the war of all wars. And many men of tribe, many of our ancestors, many of us may have lived those lives where we rose up and we murdered these people. You had to murder them. You had to kill them. Because the danger they represented spiritual suicide to the soul of every child who got inculcated by them. And this is the issue we have today, that we have billions of men. I don't know what the true figures are, whether we're only told what those figures are, but let's just assume it's billions, who are inculcated into race, culture, creed, titles, standings, who have had this, the engineering or the social engineering that forms their lifestyles and interests, because everything's been provided to them. Because in the system, it's like a supermarket and you're in a trolley and you're going down in the aisles and you're in the shop and you're buying freedom and you're buying conscience and you're buying football and you're buying fashion and you're buying history and you're buying education and you might have your kids sitting within the trolley and going, oh, I better buy this for my kid too and this for my kid and that. And we think we're doing the right thing, that our good heart is, the calling out. This is coming from a good heart, that the supermarket and everything that we're part of is who we are. It's an expression of who we are. But we're so misguided because we can't see, can't sense this deception. And because we don't know who we are, and we're so confused because the definitions are so close to what we're looking at as reality, because the daffodil is yellow while we're sensing the life form. We're looking at it. We can see it. We can smell it. But our head is spinning with the definitions so much. And we've been so brainwashed by education because we sent our kids to school and preschool and we put them in front of, television and internet and iPods and everything else. This constant bombardment of definitions on top of definitions, which includes classical music, all classical instruments, all mathematical notations, everything that comes out of mathematics, everything that forms the iconography and the images of English and any alphabet language. We're constantly hit at it because we are calling out. I live in this dream world, this fake dream world. This is who I am. Who I am has been defined.
And it's these definitions that allow us to not recognize the harm, because we look at this camera and we're thinking, oh, camera, pictures, memories, photos, all that sort of thing. But what we're actually looking at is we don't see destroyed mountain. And all the harm that's gone to destroy the mountain, or we look at the piece of paper. Communication, great, we can write all this stuff, but that's destroyed trees we're looking at there.
Well, more than that, it's a destroyed man who believes in the fantasy that these things are reality and are essential to our communication. So we're willingly calling out to broken man, destroy. Come forward, broken man. Come forward, broken man. Come forward with the broken mountain. Come forward as the broken man. Come forward as the broken child. And the judge called, when you go to the legal system, the court, and they're calling out the name. Come forward, you lost, stupid man. And they're laughing at you because you're under such fear and such doubt and uncertainty that they manipulate you so much. And they play out 9/11, they play out wars, and they play out horror stories, and you get it all white-handed, whitewashed all through Hollywood and television, every which way you turn. And even the Freemasons themselves, these occultists, they act out roles of destruction and amongst each other and destroy each other under the act to give the impression that this is the norms of life and this is the way it is for everybody. And and I did mention this.
And it's even like to the thing when our mobile phones, when we want a mobile phone, we're calling out to a man to go and possibly get killed by working within those conditions and within that highly toxic environment. So I'd call out for a mobile phone is actually a calling out for the death of one of our brothers and death for parts of Earth that are being heavily polluted by mobile phones. And then with our children, we're calling out for, oh, I'll buy you a mobile phone, darling. We're calling out for the death of our children too.
Yeah, exactly. The moment, like I mentioned in the other video, if you want one metal screw, you're going to need 10,000 slaves. Well, actually, the truth is, to want anything of the system, you got to bring the whole devastation of reality to you. You're calling out to the whole devastation. Please come destroy. Please come forward, destruction. Please come forward, liars, fraudsters. because that's what we are calling out, because that's what we've become.
Because just as the bird can't exist without the forest can't exist without the bird, the one screw can't exist without the whole of the system to produce it, whether indirectly involved in the manufacture process or just the whole of the system has to exist for that to be thought of. So there's not one thing in the system, and this is why when people want to take bits of the system with them, we will say, but you can't, because as soon as you do, you're bringing the whole of the system with you, just like you can't have the forest, the bird without the forest.
Yeah, just to claim that you own something of the system, which is what belief, faith, and associated opinion is rooted in. It's all in ownership through self-obsession. Just to claim that you own something, as in land, means you need the whole of the system to protect what you claim that you own, which means you need a world of brothers and sisters deeply brainwashed to become the authorities, the blue collars, the white collars, the representatives of everything that is required for you to call out the land that you own. And that's just a fairy tale. It's no different to the child playing as Alice in Wonderland.
Well, there you have the polarization as well. On the one hand, I've got my bit of land. I'm going to grow my veggies. I'm going to set it up for survival. It's my land. So therefore, you need the police, you need the law enforcement, so you can take someone to court if they're trespassing on your land or trying to take some land. But at the same time, I'm a sovereign. I'm a free man. No law. The law can't tell me what to do. Well, what do you want? You know, you can't have one without the other. You can't call on them to protect your land when someone's threatening it, and yet at the same time say, hey, I'm not one of you. I'm a free man. I don't need your law. You can't do that.
That's why they laugh at you. That's why they think everyone's
Exactly.
psychotic, because everyone's a ward of the state, because they really are psychotic, because you believe in the fantasy. You want all the good bits of the fantasy, but you don't want all the bad bits. But yet all the bad bits come with all the good bits. You cannot separate them. They all come together. You know, to harm one part of a mountain, you're harming the whole mountain. To harm one part of a family, you're harming the whole family. To harm any part of creation, you're harming the whole of creation. That's how sacred everything is. And wholeness, W-H-O-L-E, the whole, is the big picture, the dream of life. We must never forget. But because we're so shattered, so fragmented by, you know, the wholeness is here, but we have all these interjoining lines like roads and streets that make suburbs and cities and highways and byways and laneways. And everything inside these broken, defined areas have got numbers. You know, number 1, Lot Lane. Number 4, you know, Joe Blow's, you know, whatever highway. And everything with a number and a street and definition, naming, is all it's like a jigsaw puzzle shattered. And our head is navigating down the black lines of all the definitions, because we're actually not in the wholeness or as the wholeness of the whole thing itself. So we are totally lost forever, and we send our kids to be lost forever. Let's shatter our kids' brains.
Well, we do it right from the start, before we even send them anywhere.
Yeah.
We're straight away, we're at the baby's cradle. Oh, they need something jingly. Oh, we got to talk to them. Oh, they need this, they need that. And especially when they're little and they're in the garden and they're just wandering around, we rush up because we've got to stimulate them. We've got to show them, look, this is the daffodil, this is yellow. Here you are, look at this is this is that. This does this does that, this does the other. We don't give them any moments whatsoever to just absorb it and figure out for themselves what's going on.
Yeah. It's calling out, because that's all the dream of life is. It's a song of calling out, and what we call out, we draw to us. That's why when you call, you know, when you're farming, you call out to your flock, you know, you call out to your dog, comes. So when we're calling out the distortion and confusion, which are definitions of fantasy, defining a perception of reality that you never invented, you're calling out for the illusion of the man and claiming that that illusion is who you are. And that's what the judge and the law and the experts in the system call out. They're calling out for the representative of the man, not the man. They're calling out for the liar.
You should just be calling, idiot, idiot, come on.
Come forward, stupid. Is
Come
stupid
on.
here?
Really?
Come forward, you fucking idiot. And they're laughing at you behind the scenes while they're sipping cognac.
And while they're being superly respectful and nice in court, you
Yeah.
know, now come along. Now, what did you want to say? Yes, dear. All right, tell me your side of the story. Okay, now I've heard it. Good. Now I'll give you the law, and that's it. Slam.
Yeah, because they really have accepted that the dream of life that they hold, that is the system, is where they are, because they've been trained and they've done it to themselves. We've all done it. We've all decided to make our bed in the system, and under the sheets of this bed is the name Fiona Cristian, Arthur Cristian, with the contracts. And we are so cozy in this bed that we don't know how else to be, because all day, every day, we're calling out to the contracts that are attached to the name we claim is who we are, because none of this works without a name. And that's why the name is the mark, as in the mark of the beast, because the beast is the man. And the beast is the man who plows the fields of the occultist dream world. We work as their slaves, and that's why we are the beast with the mark. And we're going to go from this gold standard through to the user pay system that of this fractional reserve banking, and promise to pay through credit, which is another story, not for this video. Back from we're going through all of this back into serfdom, where we're going into a cashless economy, where the name will be called out. Come forward, cashless man, broken man, under the landlords and land bands who will govern earth in protection, perpetuity for all of man, because we could never solve all our problems amongst each other. Hence, we needed their federation, like the Federation in Star Trek. We now need them to glue the order, the final one world government system of Jesus, because Zeus means one world government. Letter S and Z are interchangeable. This one world government, and it's borne out by the fact that we have accepted, and again, I should mention the social engineering of this too, because we've become aliens to the very reality that where the essence of who we are comes from. But now we are this green aliens. We call them greenies, alternatives, echo-minded. They're good-hearted. We've got to do the right thing. We must look at sustainability. We've got to start cutting down all these things. So you see all this green alien appearing, but under the name. And this green social engineered alien, doesn't matter whether it's a green gay alien, a green homosexual alien, or whether it's a green heterosexual alien. There's no man there. It's a human, a type of a man, a shape of a man, of whatever, a color of a man, but it ain't the man, because it's all definitions that the man's lost to. And this lie of the man has been called forth to be under the federation of landlords and land barons, who are going to provide the protection and the authority to make sure that no man will have to go through the injustices of what we're still living under today, right? Because I'll put an end to all this.
It's as if they've given us a chance. It's like, look, we gave you the chance to work it out yourself, and look at the mess that you've created. So obviously we're going to have to take control, only not in those words, but obviously we're going to make sure that no one harms Earth again, that we're all got our place, and we all do our bit, and everything's fair and equal, because you couldn't do it before. So this is what we've got to do it now. We've got to take control. It's just like no different to the mother to her children saying, right, you two have shown me you can't take responsibility for this, so you're going to have to now do this, this, and this. No different.
Under your directive.
Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. So it's the same thing with landlords and land barons in the times of the serfs and commoners, because the serfs and commoners, which is the vast population of man, had to go to the landlords and land barons and the aristocracy, the royal families, the high priests, the owners of the castles. I said, please, could you give us a piece of land? And, where we can make our home, or whether there's something already there. Maybe you're invited sometimes. And the landlord will say, yep, no problem, but you're going to have to tithe me 50% of all your produce. If you're going to raise cattle, I want half, or I want 70%. You can keep the other 30. If it's food and whatever else you do, I want 70%. This is all quota. And as long as you fulfill that obligation, and that can include, look, okay, I want you to come to my castle. I want you to be domestic cleaner. I want you to be a handyman, or whatever it is, the skills you may have. And the landlord may have a whole range of serfs and commoners looking after the castle and all the interests of castles, so that the serfs and commoners who do all that work have their wives and their children on those pieces of land. They're under the protection of the landlord and land baron. And as long as that's intact, then you've got some kind of order and stability, and you can raise your children, hopefully happily and sort of free, but not. So we are now going full circle. We went from that, blatantly engineered by the occultists to bring us all back to that, but now under one world government. And the Lord, Jesus Christ, is a one world Lord, landlord, because every man's on land, and without land we're nothing. And this one world landlord is William Spencer. It's been set up to become the Antichrist, because Antichrist is undefined man, anti-true freedom. So the social engineering that's gone on for so long and intensifying today is to get everyone onto their knees, so broken down, the injustice of pregnant women being bashed by police, to just all kinds of atrocities, from the oceans to the forests and the Amazons. And now I've seen, only a couple of days ago, I saw, whether it's true or not, I saw deep in the Amazon tribes being raided by the military, the Brazilian government military, whoever they are, contractors or not, pulling out these tribes from the Amazon forcibly. So we don't know what's been going on in there, but that's the stuff that's going on there in New Guinea and every other place across Earth. And this has happened to the American Indians, to what we call the men on the land now, the Aboriginals. And it's happened all over Europe and everywhere else. So this calling out is the dream that we hold, that it was derived from the education that we were given, that was also inculcated to our parents, who all promised the lucky country. So many of our parents or grandparents came here as immigrants from third world countries or from European countries, who were used to serfdom. But they're promised the lucky country, that they work hard, you can have your own piece of land, you'll have free holding, fee simple will be available, and you can build yourself a treasure chest and of status, because all the set of economies are looking at what the landlords have all got, and all the hierarchies, all the stages of different class systems. Look what they've all got. Oh God, I go to Australia and I work hard, I'm going to have what they've got, and which is why we have so many immigrants in this country who are very wealthy today, that make up the large part of the upper middle class, even though most of the middle class has been destroyed, and the upper class. So they brought them here with that promise, with that kind of intention. And all the immigrants built all the infrastructure of the system. They built the roads, the highways, the railways, the airports, the lighthouses, built all the schools, built everything. And when all the infrastructure was in place, they collapsed the gold standard, because the gold standard was the wealth of the people, created by the people, for the people, right? There was no inflation in any of this. This is another story, another time. And shifted it during the 1930s, early 1930s, mid 1930s, to this credit creation that was privately owned, where you had to borrow money that was privately owned by private interests. And hence, like in Australia, we have two crowns. We have the crown, which is the royal family, which has nothing to do with the crown, which is the corporation crown, that oversees the whole system under commercial contracts in Australia. And we've cited letters and correspondence from the Privy Council in the UK by representatives of the Queen, who said they've never appointed any Governor General in Australia ever, and that they've had nothing to do with the ratifications of what became the Constitution of Australia, what became the Commonwealth of Australia. So this deception is so huge, and yet the spoils, all the like pirates, to all the spoils, everyone's wealth that they're now stealing from everyone, because all the work's being done, they're now forcing all immigrants to give up everything under these laws and land. We call them like the various forms of taxes, land tax, and all these kind of cruel things, and they're diminishing.
And inheritance tax, so no one can gain from what their parents did or their grandparents did. The
big one is inflation and depression, or recession, inflation, recession, and how they, this is another, I'd like to maybe talk about that in another video, how they've used inflation through credit creation to destroy the buying power in the world, because today the Australian dollar is not even worth 1 cent. And what people think, oh, great, I've got more options. I've got more options today. These kids, I can go and buy iPods. I can get this and buy that, what they don't realize, they'll never be able to own land properly. They'll never be able to own homes, because the dollar that was worth $1 back when I was a kid growing up is not it's not there anymore. So the fake inflation that has destroyed one's buying power to progress has been thwarted severely. So you cannot really ever get ahead. And that's why debt is so massive in Australia. You know, with the average family in Australia was, when I did the research back in 2005, was 160% debt to income. So for every dollar they earned $1.60. So we have to assume now with inflation, it's probably going over to for every dollar now you borrow, you probably own $2.50, right? But let's blow it out to the bigger picture. Every country on earth is in debt to some other country. and everyone's living locally on all lands across earth. And all this money is created out of nothing. There's no, all this fictional dollars, none of this exists, has been used to manipulate through the laws and all that stuff to call out dumbed down stupid man to accept the local council who controls the water. So where once everyone had access to all the water freely, as tribes on land living freely, with all amongst abundance, to now under the subservience and servitude of control by private corporations to control the water, and it's pumped into everyone's home. Same with the food supplies. We lost over 500,000 farming families in this country through this inflation manipulation method of the occultists and how they've done it. And we are so broken down now that we are ripe for the picking of accepting the New World Order that will be offered to us as a remedy to all this that was engineered by the same occultists, because all the bad guys came from the same societies, fraternities as the good guys, because they work behind the scenes as good guys and bad guys. And this manipulation that polarizes us, and if we're not smart enough to step back and look at the bigger picture, we won't see what's been done to us and how it's been done to us. And we are the ones who call out to it. We call out to the shopping centre. We call up to the supermarket. We call out to the petrol companies, oil companies. We call out to everything on offer from the system, because we're so broken down and so riddled with doubt and uncertainty and all the confusion that we're gone.
We don't seem to notice that hypocrisy that we petition against the gas mining, the fracking and all this, and yet the only reason it exists is because we're consuming the gas that is produced. And yet people don't seem to make that connection. Oh, we don't want it. It really is NIMBYism, not in my backyard. It's like, I'll turn a blind eye to it so long as it's happening somewhere else. I just don't want it where I am, because I want to live in a pretty spot. So that's all it is. But that exists everywhere. We've got people out protesting the oil, and yet nearly everyone's driving a car. People out protesting all sorts of things, and yet calling, I mean, even we don't eat meat. I would say I don't want to support that industry, and yet I'm a hypocrite because I still buy meat products for my cats and dogs. So it's the same thing. At the same time, I'm saying I don't want to kill animals, I don't want to harm them, I don't want them going to the abattoirs. I'm still calling it out because I'm still buying stuff from the butcher for the animals that I take care of. So that's what it is.
Yeah, we're calling out to our fallen state. And this calling out that compromises, because, look, you're hardly going to meet anyone, if anyone, who doesn't have that good heart that says, yeah, we want everyone to have freedom. We want everyone to have truth and justice and all that. Those sentiments are constantly there everywhere, all through all the generations. And yet, the brainwashing through the inculcation has trained us to call out to the supermarket. But we still want freedom. But you can't have freedom when you want a supermarket. And you can't have freedom while you still want the screw.
You can't have freedom while you still want other people to fit into the boxes of your definitions, which is what we all do. So, and it's that incredible, again, that polarization between we have one rule for ourselves and one rule for other people nearly all the time. It's like, oh, well, they should be this, this, and this. Yeah. But when it comes to us, oh, well, you see, I can't because this, and there's this excuse and that excuse and this reason why it can't happen. But when we look at someone else, well, it's obvious they should do this, they should do that, they should do the other. And this is where our biggest calling out is keeping our brothers and sisters enslaved, because we want them to be slaves to us, to our definitions of how they should be and how they should speak and how they should look. Oh, he's too fat, he really needs to lose some weight, he's not fitting into my box of what's acceptable to be. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And then we'd say, oh no, it's okay, you should be able to do what you want, that's fine. But really inside, that in our thoughts is saying, no, you've got to be like this, you're too like that, you're not like this, you're not like that. And then we want people to accept us as we are, but until we start accepting other people as we are, we never will. It's like actually what Scott said in something the other day on the Facebook wall I really liked. He said, I used to always look for people like me, be looking for people like me. And that's what we're all doing in a sense, because that's where we feel comfortable. So we all go out there trying to squeeze everyone into the boxes of our definitions of the same thoughts, the same way of looking at things, so we can feel more comfortable to say what we think without offending someone. But we never find people like us, and that's why we're always searching, and all the people who are sitting there waiting, oh, I've got to wait till I find the right people before I can do kingdom or start a community. It's like, I've got to find the right people, find the right people, find the right people. But the problem with that, if you wait till you find the right people, it'll be an incredibly small, exclusive group that no one can come in if they're not the right person, which is totally the opposite of everything that kingdom and community is supposed to be about. And really the only reason we're so horribly judgmental to everybody is because we don't feel, we're not relaxed and comfortable in who we are. When we're fine, who cares what other people are like? But we're these add meaning machines, so we're taking everything everybody says and does around us as things that mean us. It's like I was thinking the other day, how many people go around saying, treat me like shit, treat me like shit. That's their calling out, treat me like shit, treat me like shit. I deserve to be treated like shit, because they have a story in their head that people treat them like shit.
Well, they believe
so
it.
Exactly. So all they do is they go around, they're looking out, going like, is he treating me like shit? Is he going to treat me like shit? Is he going to treat me like shit? And sure enough, in the end, someone's going to turn around and treat him like shit, because that's what they're calling. They're saying, treat me like shit, treat me like shit.
That's the trauma. That's the self-obsession. Yeah. That's the broken will. We've touched on in the other video and many of our other videos, is this self-obsession, and those who most feel treated like shit are the ones who then turn around and treat other people like shit, because they're calling out. The calling out in the system is like the ritual sacrificing, which is all the horrors, all the emotions, the destructive emotions of rage, anger, jealousy, envy, loneliness, emptiness. It goes every single one that we all can box into one category of unhealthy attitude and behavior, was all crafted out of ritual sacrifice, because the anger and the rage and all that comes from the emotions of the prisoners, the victims who were put through these rituals to be tortured to death, and capturing their blood, in the bloodletting and blood libel that formed the English language we then call out. So we have practiced the emotions of the victim that's in the sound of the letters of the language we call out. We're actually calling out as the victim broken in the ritual and whatever's going through. So on one hand, we have this good heart, and he says, yes, I want to do kingdom. At some point, the doubt comes in and all the shit starts coming up, and then comes the power trips and the control freak mechanisms and all the destruction, because we're still calling out to the horror of who we believe that we are part of, because that is the dream that we're holding, all this black that we've allowed to drip into the pure white, and we're still holding that, and we still identify.
And then we're so justified when it comes up and it happens. Oh, look. See what happened?
I'm right.
I tried to do it. I gave it a go. I gave it my all.
We can't get together.
I went along and I tried my best, but you know what? It didn't work out.
We just can't get on.
The people just weren't right, and you know the situation wasn't right, and you know it'll happen one day.
And the truth is, they're just running away. The very thing that they want to do with their heart, they won't take the responsibility. All it is letting go of the black that's in the pure white, being conscious enough to let it go, let all that trauma go. And stand your ground and be with your brothers and sisters and expand the very essence of your heart's song that you're calling out, the kingdom dream. And that's what we do. And that's how we fix this. You can't run away from this. So the calling out is our power creation in action. That's really what it is. We're calling out. As the Creator dreamt the dream of life as man, held the dream, called out everything in the dream that he was holding, all information. Come forward, cow. Come forward, bird. Come forward, breeze. Come forward, sunlight, whatever, right? And in breathing that intention, the Creator gave life to the dream of life. Now, it's undefined, right? There's no beginning and end. This is just lineal stuff. But we have all been raised in the system, and we're calling out to the constructs and concepts of definitions that forms the fantasy of who we perceive we really are in relationship with everything else of this dream of life we hold, that is the system or hell. Because everyone else is talking English or any other alphabet, and everyone else is calling out to the song of English, and we all go to the bank, sit in the line waiting for the teller. Or we hop in cars and we go through traffic jams to get to work. Or we go to supermarkets, or we go to football to watch the same football team. Because these are cults of the occults. These are cults. These are sameness programs, sameness packages. And it's
like we're all wearing Technicolor dream coats.
Yep,
and the Technicolor dream coats are everything of the system that we've taken on and that we believe in, that we called out to daily. And if we really want to get free, our lives free, really free, we have to be brave enough to take off those Technicolor dream coats and walk forward naked as the man. I don't particularly mean literally naked without clothes.
Well, there was a Technicolor drink in the background just then.
I mean naked as in bare as to who we really are and what shit's really going on in our heads, and all the shit that we've got, we wrap it all up and we pretend it doesn't exist, and we go around as the happy, I'm fine, and all the external parameters of behavior that we've learned to fit in. And that's what we need to take off. You know, we've got to learn to take it all off.
Stop faking
and it's
everything.
Incredibly difficult. I mean, incredibly. I still fake it plenty of times.
Yeah, it's just we practice it.
About,
we've been practicing it from the womb. It's so ingrained. But the turning around is getting to recognise the difference between that nonsense, which is the program coming from the inculcation, the definitions that's formed as fake identity, which comes with all the fake character attributes, because again, in the ritual sacrifice, everything that the victim is experiencing and feeling is encoded in the dream of the alphabets, in the letters and sounds that forms the words. So as they say in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. It's this whole telling you the truth. But this is not the God that everyone feels of their heart, because that God's already here and living amongst us already now. This God's a fiction, but it needs a dead man to accept this dead fiction. So it's calling out to a dead world of dead things where there's no soul, nothing. And that's what we got. So the extinction of reality is before us right now in this life, because we're calling out to annihilation. We're singing the song of death, because the dream of life that is the system is the dream of death.
Which someone just said in a comment a little while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
It's the dream of death.
All the while we're desperate for life, we're calling out for death the whole time, and not just death to who we think we are. We're calling out to death to everything of life.
See, in the system, we're trained to hold in focus the definitions by using the partitioning of our brain, because we have to be partitioned, compartmentalized, if you like, shattered, to hold the memory of the definition added to by every other definition that we have to learn to hold. So we're holding in focus a picture of definition where inside this dreamscape of definitions is the image of the man we believe who we are. That is, for example, the kid who wears the Superman costume, talked on the other video, performing in the story of Superman. Okay, so instead of the Superman costume, it's your birth certificate and the name you're given as the beast that you plow on the fields of reality to provide your fruits to your slave masters or your life. And because this is covert control, it's not overt, they have had to work on the manipulation of this constantly. And so our brains have been shattered, hence the split personality. So when a police officer calls out to you because the red light was flashing and the emotion go, oh God, I've got to pull over. It's a policeman. He has a higher standing than me. I have to be answerable to this man. I mean, you haven't broken the law. You haven't committed a crime. You haven't injured anyone. You've not broken the peace, you know. But the amount of times people get damaged and injured by statute laws, which is all absolutely rooted in no harm done by anyone, but you've broken statute laws and you've been subjected by the authorities of those who you've accepted has a high standing in you. So the emotion of you, the trauma, you go, oh, that light's flashing, I can see in the rearview mirror, I better pull over. And the man comes over and says, whatever he says, whatever claim makes, says, I want to see your ID. Now, pulling out your ID is committing fraud because that's not you. But the policeman's trained to call out the fiction. And you're trained to call out the fiction because the fiction only operates in the fairy tale of the system. So none of this happens in reality because in reality, no man's master of another man. All men are equal. And there's no chaos or doubt or uncertainty or disorder. It's only in the system that this shit plays out. And this is why one of the judges in the Supreme Court told Fiona back in October last year. Was it last year or the year before?
Last year.
2017 or 2016?
17.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh no, I think it was 2016. You've been paying Bottrell off now for quite a while.
Right. Yeah,
it was 2016. Doesn't matter. All this time doesn't matter. But the point was, he actually said to Fiona, yes, I agree that all men are equal, but man subjects themselves under the law. Right? So
to keep order. To
keep order. Otherwise we have chaos. But all the documents we filed, which if you go to the Satanic Craft of Inculcation and Practice in the Love Life website, or look for it on our wall, the links I put up in many of these posts on the Facebook wall, you'll see the documents that were filed in the Supreme Court in Canberra about all this inculcation and that. And all he could say, from what Fiona's, because I wasn't there, I'm only getting third party, but he could say, I don't agree with your interpretation or version of the word inculcation. Now, Fiona should have said to him straight away, so you can't find any fault in anything I'm saying. So you're actually, all you're offering me is an opinion. But opinions are not proof of fact. Belief and faith and associated opinions are not proof of fact. But because he knows how this game plays out and Fiona was still waking up, he was able to manipulate a situation. No different to a police officer who manipulates the man to hand over his ID, right? So this stuff is sinister, it's nasty as, and the people behind it are the very people, the bloodlines, who were murdered. Most of them were murdered and assassinated by our ancestors in other lives, because they have been waging a war against all of us to destroy us, but also in destroying them too, to destroy this very dream that we hold. And the apathy and the denial and the fear and the segregation and the censorship and discrimination that we've been subjected to has polarized everyone to such an extent that these people can run amok, doing whatever they want, however they want, whenever they want, and there's no repercussion. Nothing.
And they win every time because they have got us so trained that no matter how much we are saying we want freedom, we want consciousness, we want kingdom, we want this, we're still calling out all the time to everything. That's why they don't mind us people getting together and talking about this stuff or trying to do that, because while we're still calling out for everything of the system, they know we'll never make it happen. So that's okay. That's why all the freedom truther people are allowed to storm all over the internet, because there's
yeah. So
okay.
the thing about this is that the subjugation to the definitions that comes with all the trauma from the ritual sacrificing through the alphabets that we call out has formed the wonderland, or the fantasy world, where we are so disconnected because our brain's so lost to the black that we have formed black spots or blind spots of unconsciousness where we can't sense the effect of what we're calling out, the fantasy, the definitions. And it's in that they still maintain power and control, because if a man wakes up and can see the big picture and is no longer under the influence of all the compartmentalizing that form the jigsaw puzzle of the shattered reality, and is no longer lost inside the navigation of the law, because when you rely on the law to fight in the law, you're relying on the words and this evidence and all the court records and precedences, and you've got to know your law. But they're all the lines that traverse, that forms the shattered puzzle of reality, right? It isn't the wholeness of the man, right? Because they don't see you. They don't see the man. They only see the fiction, because all that's coming forward is the fiction. Now, while you accept their water that they claim through the contracts, while you accept the contracts to accept the water, instead of just having the water in your land, and tell them to fuck off if they come anywhere near to touch the water, because you have a right to do that. You've got to know who you are to do that. And while you use the name for anything in the system that ties you into credit cards and bank accounts and driver's licenses and mortgages and everything else, you're gone, because you are admitting that you are in their world and of their world, and you're under their authority. You've accepted them as your caretakers and custodians over the water, the state of your psychotic condition, because you still believe that all this fantasy is reality. And that's how they've destroyed you, because, see, the high-level Freemasons all throughout the system don't own anything. Never have and never will. They own nothing, because that's the truth. Nobody owns anything. But they offer you the temptation to claim ownership over land title deeds and mortgages, and including the language we send our kids. So we are forever claiming the lie, which means we've accepted the curse, the processing of devastation and destruction to reality. So they intervene, because we're going to start arguing and fighting with each other. So they come to provide order to this chaos, right? So they are nothing. It's only the people, brainwashed, who claim ownership over mortgages and leases, and bank accounts and credit cards, that need order, that need them to administrate. So while you claim that you own something, you bring the whole of the system into your life to administrate over you in their world, all the while they own nothing. And while you claim that you own anything of the system, which means you're claiming ownership over the body of the man, you're claiming ownership over the land itself and everything that's living, you're committing not only fraud and lying, but you are processing now a curse of destruction to who you are and to who you love and to everything that you're part of that connects to all of this. And so if your whole life is connected to electricity, you're destroying reality. If we're connected to technology and computers, we're destroying reality before our eyes. While we still want petrol and cars and everything that comes in the system, while you still want the supermarket and you still want the petrol companies and you still want anything that feeds you from the system, you are processing the curse of devastation and destruction to reality. You gave up and sold out. And you're calling out to it. And you'll fight to keep it. Oh, yes, we get a lot of neighbors. Oh, yes, it's really good. You know, it's really sad what happened to us and, you know, all this sort of stuff. We tell them what we've been through and what we've done in creating a food forest garden here. But part of them feels awful because they know we're renters on this land. But we've created something more magnificent than they've ever got. We don't live in fear the way they live in fear. We're not worried about tomorrow and what happens tomorrow or what they did. It's what we do and how we live now, here and now. and how we act and the attitude that doesn't come with any black in the white that we hold. So from that perspective, the real waking up, the true coming of man is just letting go of all the bullshit in our heads, seeing it for what it is, and being responsible to hold the living dream through our senses, which is the living dream of the man that we've created. That's our soul, right? It's undefined, and no one can make that for you, for any of us. We've got to do it. Each of us has got to do it. But when we do it through undefined ways, we're in connection with everything of reality perfectly, because we are the bird, we are the wind, we're the rain, we're everything, and we actually create the weather. We create everything to our experience. We change the weather, we can change the climate, we can change everything. If we wake up to who we are and start holding magnificent dreams with no emotional attachment to any outcomes with them, there's no self-obsession attached. And this is one of the greatest difficulties for wise people to wake up, because they don't know how to distinguish between the fake persona, which comes with all their alphabet thoughts, and the aspirations of their good heart, which comes through their senses. They somehow still need to bring the alphabet thoughts into the dream of their good heart, so that the black continues going with the white into kingdom, only to destroy it all by destroying themselves, right? Because they don't know how to stop it.
Learning to give freely of who we are, I think, is one of the greatest tests of how attached we are to this fake persona. Because if we're giving of our time and our energy, it usually doesn't take long before suddenly what's in it for me? What am I getting out of this? Look what I'm doing, and I'm not getting recognition, or I'm not getting reward, or I'm not getting this. And that, if that starts clicking around in your brain, it's a sure sign that the self-obsession is still ruling you very strongly, because otherwise it wouldn't even occur to you. If you're giving freely in the moment, every moment, then you're never going to have those thoughts of what about me? What am I getting? What's it?
Yes, so to just look at this like under a microscope, the attachment to the definition yellow daffodil binds us to the life form. And if we execute the information of the yellow daffodil, will perform whatever the ritual is associated with it. So when you look at the whole of the English language that we call out, we're forever, we really are, we're in the mishmash of forever calling out devastation and destruction through the good heart calling out to the dream of life, of the fiction that we live in. And so we will support everything of the system that's destroying the whole thing, right? Because our sense of belonging is still attached inside the wonderland of definitions. It's like a history book or a book of life that's been formed out of the definitions, and it was given a birth certificate and a death certificate when the body has been deceased. And then it's given when you go to a cemetery, it's given somewhere, or it's given some plaque or whatever, that this is the life of the man. But that man was never a man, because the whole man was just defined by bullshit the whole life and never lived as a real man. Because a real man doesn't need any of this, because the essence of the real man continues on as the celestial bodies of that light that shine. And it is the bird and it's the wind and rain, because it was our ancestors who created all this stuff. The song is still calling out. So when we call out to the living dream, we're calling out to all our ancestors who created everything, undefined, right? But when we're calling out to the yellow daffodil, we bring the whole of the system of definitions into us, and we merge the fake fiction of who we claim we are into the fake Wonderland story. And this is why little Mary can fall into the story of Alice in Wonderland and claim that she is Alice, acting as Alice. But where the whole thing of Wonderland and the whole thing of Alice in Wonderland, or through the looking glass, is fantasy. It's an illusion and it's delusion. None of it exists. It's just happening inside the brain, where she's been trained to hold in focus the memory of these imprinted definitions. And we walk around totally deep asleep, because we're constantly focusing on this memory, recalling. So you've got to remember. You've got to talk English. You've got to be able to know what 1, 2, 3 is. You've got to add it up. You've got to know how to work in commerce. And so you're
totally not present to the moment that you're living in at that moment. because everything else in your head is just filling it up with all this stuff. So that's why you forget something, you put something down, you don't think about it, you stomp on a plant, you do something because you're not present there to be aware and observe what's going on around you.
We're Frankensteins, heavy foot, landing and smashing like Godzilla over Bambi, you know. And it's just we are death machines. We're death destruction machines, and it's reinforced. And while we do it, we need the occultists to continue providing order. Yet alone, did they realize that this very devastation destroys their children, destroys everything of their ancestry. But they don't yet see the big picture of this yet, you know, because they're still asleep themselves. So this rising up, we're not saying go to war and start murdering all these occultists, but we need to shut them down. But the only way to shut them down, instead of fighting them and giving our energy to their world and going into the political arena and fighting through politics, because that's only feeding the system and keeping it going, still having attachments to it. And there's no point creating cases in courts, whether you do public action groups or whatever, because that's still, you're still in the system. You're not going to get out. You're still going to keep the system rolling along, and nothing's changed. We just repeat the same mistakes over and over and over again until there's nothing left of any of us. That's the end result of our stupidity if we do that. So it's a mass letting go, a mass withdrawal, a walking away, and working together to create a living paradise of kingdom where everyone's cared for, right? Where no one's underneath each other, where no one owns anything, and no one's under any form of self-obsession anymore. And so there will be a lot of healing required to help people get past this what's in it for me, because everything coming out of the system will come with what's in it for me. Can I really trust someone else? Can I trust strangers? Look, this stuff is a fucking nightmare. The procession of people we've had living here who lost the plot and ran is staggering. People come with a good heart, but they leave with hell leading them out the door. It's unbelievable how they do it.
It's only when we stop using any of the products from the factories that the factories will turn off. It's only when we stop using all the oil that the oil wells will turn off. It's only when we stop buying all the crap from the supermarket that the supermarkets will close their doors. None of it's going to change until we change the way we live. And then everything else follows behind.
Now, this is the most peaceful way of bringing down the whole system. Now, if the occultists decide they want to go to war because they want to keep the power, well, then we'll have to assassinate them. You're going to have to fucking murder them. Because if you don't, your kids are going to be in danger. Really, the truth is, all those UFOs, all those unidentified floating objects come across the waters. The man on the land should have sensed their intention, put the women away, put all the children away somewhere, and then all the men went and burnt those ships down and killed everyone in those ships. So none of those ships landed anywhere, because none of this mess would be going on today, because we're too stupid. Our good heart and our kindness, okay, sure, we don't die, they die and all that stuff, but why persecute, go for all this? Why? I mean, this man in the system is 60. Why go for all this trauma, all this pain for what? When I could live the whole life of abundance and joy and created such enrichment to nourish thousands of generations to come, yet alone this life, what we've got, and each of us doing that. Could you imagine if one plant can produce 1,000 seeds, what can we do? When we created all this, what we can do is staggering, but we're just so gone in this bullshit. So
it's like we're so ready to only hold dreams of scarcity. You know, oh gosh, look, there's not too many greens in the garden right now. I wonder if we're going to have enough, before the next lot go through. And why are we worrying about it? Just eat what we've got. And sure enough, in how many years we've had the garden now, and greens is one of the things we've always grown, the main things. There's only been once in about, 5 years now? 5 years, however, that we didn't have enough greens, and we had to, over about a period of about 2 weeks, go and buy some greens from the shops. And yet it still comes up, oh, I don't know if we've got enough greens. They're getting a bit low. I wonder if we're going to have enough. We've always had enough. And yet we still allow these thoughts of scarcity and maybe not, and if and what and when and how and why. And instead of just getting on with the moment, okay, we need to eat now, so we'll pick some greens that are growing in the garden.
Yeah, we have to call out to the big picture so that the follow through has us nourished with ongoing greens without ever not having it. Now, the real calling out, the big one, all of us working together, is creating food forests. and raise up these food forests so that no one goes without anything ever. Because then most of the issues we all have will all be gone literally overnight once you get food forests up and running. There will be no more overpopulation. People don't get this. Every time we breathe out, we're adding water. We're adding water to the water of the dream of life. Earth is expanding. There's always room for everyone. There's never not been room for anyone. The lie of overpopulation is only the inculcation has drawn people to come together into cities and into large networks and house themselves there under the subjugation and all the horrors that come out of that kind of lifestyle.
Well, it's also the destruction of Earth as we keep doing it. We've created the deserts. We've created the scarcity on Earth when there shouldn't be any. There should be food wherever we go. So that's why it's that thing of we've created it. We look out and go, oh my God, there's no food. There's not going to be enough food. And guess what? That's what we're calling out. So there's not enough food. Yeah.
I think that we'll do another video again soon, and we'll go more into the self-obsession. Though, if you go to the Arthur Love for Life YouTube channel, youtube.com/Arthur Love for Life, and look at the links in our work, you'll find plenty of videos there where Fee and this man have been talking about a lot of this stuff. But we'll do it again. We'll do some of this more exact, like looking through a microscope into self-obsession, how we call out the fake persona and why we go against our good heart all the time to destroy those that sing the song of the calling out of our good heart. We actually turn against each other and try to destroy each other through insane means for no reason at all, just because of the fear and the doubt and the confusion and, and again, what's in it for me and the threat of what one's holding. Oh my God, I don't want anyone to steal my land. Oh my God, no one's going to take my money from my bank account.
Often as well, I don't want anyone to steal the fiction of the stories that I hold about myself.
Yeah.
That is actually the biggest one, because that's what happens when we let people close. Suddenly they may say to us, hey, do you realize that your behavior in this instance is blah, 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 and it's going against what you actually say you want to do. Now that is actually the biggest threat just about to anybody, and that is where you get the biggest reaction. They go, don't you dare threaten my self-obsession. Don't you dare threaten my stories that I have about me. Don't you dare attack my denial about
the secrets too. People carry a lot of secrets they don't want anyone to know about because the shame that comes with it, that they buried so deep. And the secrets of I don't want people to see that I'm dumb and stupid, or I don't want to know that I've hit kids, or I don't want to know that I've raised my voice and I've harmed my children, or there's a whole history. We all carry this stuff, and it's just letting go and opening up and purging. With the real people. I stress the point, and something else I should mention this. The whole system is full of intelligence agents. Every which way you turn, there are intelligent agents coming near you. They're not every single man, woman, and child, but there is enough that they're close to you always, because you allow them into your life as rock stars, film actors, people in positions of authority in all areas, including schools and education. Education and the institutions. There's not every single one of them, but there's enough of them who sold out, because they feed back the intelligence they gather by the stupid who tell them everything of what they're dreaming for. They're always telling them the truth because they trust them. The people, the dupe, trust them, think that they're good people from their good heart, because these wolves in lamb's clothing, they emanate the mantras of your heart. But if you don't detect these people, you will not realize the intelligence gathering going on that will go back to their headquarters, that's filtered into the larger internationalized networks, and from there be directed back at you. Why? Because they do not want anyone to leave the prison, and they want to be one step ahead. They want to anticipate one step ahead faster than anyone else, so there's no precedence to remove power and control they have over you. So there's more than you realize. There's far more, especially in social media networks, especially with people like us, where we have saturation of intelligence operatives. And there's a lot of tactics that are used, which we can talk in another video about these kind of stuff. Though it's not part of the remedy, it's just being aware how these things work. What's going on? So going back to the beginning of the reason for this video, the calling out. we're either calling out for the life of the living man, or we're calling out for the lie that we fell for, where we commit fraud and devastation, destruction all our lives. And this is the distinction between light and black, white and you know, darkness and light. And though darkness doesn't exist, because it's just a fantasy that man invented, because there is no darkness, it's just man performing darkness. But if man dropped the costume of darkness, darkness would drop and be put away, and there is no darkness to be experienced, because it's not a soul there that lives as the cow. You can't visit. So it's the same as sickness and disease. All of it comes from the calling out of this darkness, of this anti-life. And probably in that next video, we should really get into that as well. We should talk about this anti-life, anti-Christ, this thing, because it's so close. The truth and the lie is so close. And if we can't work it out, we're gone. We're totally gone. Call, wind it up for now.
Sure.
Yeah. So guys, thank you. We're back again shortly with another event. Bye.
A special event.
A special event. Oh. Yeah.
We'll wear bikinis or something.
Okay. I'll look good in it.
Yeah.
Bye.
You want to build yourself a castle, a better castle than the other ones. You come out, the spades and shovels and the buckets are all lined up ready for you to make your mark in sandpit land. You come out, a modern hero. Will you stand and watch while Rome is burning, as fantasies of life evaporate? You come out, stop shouting, stop shouting, climbing up the walls of first and best and fastest giant. You're running round the sandpit, fighting over the toys of richest, famous, tallest, big shot. Stop blowing, stop blowing, telling tales of struggle, hard won fortune, skills and outcomes. You're scaling empty mountains, faking footsteps, faking handholds. You big man giant, you're driving truckloads of emotion, compelling you to dance to the sandpit tunes. Rulers bending you to orders, binding you with whispers, teaching you to dream their dreaming, kindly putting up the fences, handing out the sled toys, or you know, to build the world with. You're grabbing toys to make a hit, you're trading smiles with other shit, you're thinking that you worked it out. You're blind to those who guide your way, your rosy glasses hold this way, your sandpit thinking pulls you down. All your might and all your armies, with all your 666 hand signals and your destruction. You're just stuck inside this no return vortex. Giant, you're the chosen ones of nothing. You're the golden goose of folly. All the power you claim just doesn't exist. Giant, you big man giant, you're tumbling down. You big man giant, you're just a clown. You big man giant, you're tumbling down. You big man giant, you're just a clown. The bird has flown.